Hey everybody, Gibson and me are back. Gibson and I are back to this time instead of shoes, we'll be talking some sports. We're huge Blazer fans, huge basketball fans, so we'll probably focus mostly on the Blazers and basketball tonight. So this is the very first episode of Stumptown Sports, coming to you from Beaverton, Oregon, and Calabasas, California. Gibson, how's it going?
Going well?
Been watching any basketball?
Definitely. Tons of it.
Especially with the games on during the day,
Yeah.
even at work, it's like, man, it's hard not to tune in for at least some of the games, right?
I wish that it was always like this. Games at 10:30 in the morning. That's just it's so much easier to wake up and then for me waking up during the summer, not doing waking up late, and then you can just turn on a game immediately. It's super nice.
Agreed. Plus, you get like the way that the schedule's set up now, where they just have basically 4 or 5 games a day, kind of in order. You
Yeah,
could theoretically watch all the games. Of course, I don't have time, even on a day
right.
off, to watch all the games. But like during the NBA, the regular NBA season and schedule, half the games come on at 4 o'clock Western Pacific, and
Yeah,
so
right.
maybe you can watch part of one of them or one and a half of them or something. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's a lot of games that I want to watch, but are like, especially now that we're like 7 games into the eighth or to the 8 seeding games, there's games that like would still be fun to watch. Like today's, like the Nuggets played the Clippers. Like that's a fun game to watch. Two, like very talented teams. Definitely like going to be in the playoffs, and you know, very like that's a good game to watch. But by now, the Clippers have clinched the second seed. The Nuggets have clinched the third seed. So now like player teams aren't playing their stars, and while it's still basketball, it's not as fun to watch now as it was at the beginning when basketball was brand new back and fresh, and but it's still fun just because basketball is back.
yeah, exactly. There's nothing you can really do about it, at least that I can think of. But it's so irritating when you're in a playoff race and like you have to win, but also you're helped or hurt by whether other teams win or
Yeah,
lose.
yeah,
And the other teams that you're hoping will lose play teams that have already clinched. So they sit on
yeah,
the stars. So
right.
like you end up like the Blazers the other night played Dallas, and the night before Dallas played the Suns,
uh
Spurs.
Not.
I can't
Yeah, some. Yeah,
one of
right.
the other Western Conference teams that the Blazers needed to lose, and they sat everybody.
Yeah,
And then they sat Luca and they sat Porzingis, sat all their guys, and then the next night they play the Blazers and those guys play.
yeah,
And so it's a little bit. I mean, it seems unfair. Like whatever, if you win your
yeah.
games, it doesn't matter, and it's not like there's something you can do about it. But as a fan, it's still frustrating.
Yeah, right. And for teams like the Lakers or the Bucks or the Clippers for that matter, or the Raptors, I guess, um, like this is just kind of like these 8 games are like make sure your chemistry's there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like they're not playing for anything. They've already clinched, the 1 or 2 seed. So they can afford to not play their stars. They can experiment with different lineups. I mean, for most of the Clipper games, they've either played Paul George or Kawhi. And just to kind of like give either of them rest, and except for the Blazers, when I think no, maybe they've been no, Kawhi didn't play against the Blazers, but the Suns, both of them played, and
yeah,
somehow Devin Booker managed to get it done either way. But at this point, like the Blazers are struggling, especially because they're fighting for every single game, and like on one hand, Damian Lillard got his wish and he can he got sent to Orlando with a chance to make it to the playoffs. But for all those other teams, it's just kind of a nice like you coast into the playoffs, which is I guess how it is for the regular season most of the time. But
yeah. I mean, they earn the right to be able to do that, right, with their records by
yeah,
winning. The
yeah,
Blazers mostly because of injuries, and then the guys who weren't injured somehow sort of underperformed all year still. Like
yeah,
I was looking back at some things that I posted on Facebook about the Blazers, and one of the things I said was, I understand that this team isn't good. I just don't understand why they're this bad. And that was, I don't
Yeah.
remember, but it was probably like a February or like a January or February post where, okay, I get it. Nurk is out, Collins is out, Hood is out. Yeah, you're down three starters, you're going to be bad. But they still have their two best players, Dame and CJ, and the Blazers
Yeah.
were terrible. Couldn't beat
So
anybody.
bad.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind of fun that they get an opportunity to fight for the playoffs again. Um,
Right.
right now, if they win tomorrow against Brooklyn, they go into the play-in game as the eighth seed. So they
Yeah.
would play, I believe, Saturday, and they would, if
Yep.
they win that game, they're the eighth seed, and they play the Lakers. If they lose that
Yep.
game, they would get another chance the next day. I know you know this. I'm just, for anybody listening, trying to follow
Yeah.
along.
Right. Of course.
That they would play the same team on Sunday. So if let's say they win tomorrow and they get the eighth seed, and Memphis wins, they would be the ninth seed. Blazers would play Memphis on Saturday. If the Blazers win, they play the Lakers in the first round. If the Blazers lose, they get another chance to play Memphis, and Memphis has to win twice if they're going
Yeah.
to leapfrog and get in.
Yeah.
Um, we were talking about this earlier. I feel a little bit bad for Memphis because
Yeah.
Memphis came in the eighth seed and then lost that first game to the Blazers after playing really well in overtime.
Yeah.
And then Jaren Jackson Jr. got hurt, and
Yeah.
it just crushed him. I mean, he's
Yeah.
not their best player, but he's probably their second best, and um,
Yeah.
that's just
Definitely their second best, if not their best. I mean, he's he's definitely up there
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
know what you're saying. Yeah.
No, that's right. You're right. But it helps the Blazers because
Yeah.
Memphis came in 3.5 games up, and now the Blazers are actually in the eighth seed. So who do you think is going to get?
Yeah.
Let's assume the Blazers. I think the Blazers will win tomorrow. It makes me nervous
Yeah.
because the Blazers' defense has been so terrible that they could literally lose to anyone. I think they could
Yeah.
beat anyone or lose to anyone the way they're playing right now.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, and Brooklyn has one of those teams that you might overlook because their big stars are hurt that would
Yeah.
actually fight you because they're still play well.
So where is Brooklyn in the standings? That's my question. Um,
Brooklyn's locked in.
because
I think they're either the seventh or eighth seed. But I looked at this last
yeah, they're
night,
the seventh seed.
and they can't move. They can't move up or down. So they're
Yeah.
100% seventh seed.
So if you're Brooklyn, do you play everyone? I mean, everyone that you can, and just kind of like one more game to like lock down chemistry and make sure you're running the right plays and everything, or do you just say, okay, we can't move and sit everyone?
I think it depends on who those guys are. And what I mean by that is like,
Yeah.
of course, if anyone's feeling like banged up, you let them rest. You don't play.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And but then again, you have to know your personnel. And a guy like Gary Harris, who's a shooter,
Or Joe Harris.
Joe Harris. I'm sorry, not
Yeah.
Gary Harris, Joe Harris. A guy like Joe Harris, who's a shooter, you have to ask questions like, is he in rhythm? And if he sits
Yeah.
out, can he get Can he get in rhythm in practice, or does he need some game minutes? Because one thing I did notice is that most of their starters sat their last game.
Yeah.
So no Joe Harris, no Karis LeVert, no Jared Allen, one other guy, one of Garrett Temple.
Yeah.
So uh, so I don't know. I think it kind of depends on that. I'm hoping, of course, that they just sit those guys and give the Blazers a
Yeah.
pass. But
Right. I think if I'm the Nets, I mean, the Blazers are hungry and they need a win tomorrow. Like they don't need it like they needed a win yesterday.
yeah,
But they would be so much better off with a win tomorrow. And that's assuming that Memphis loses their next game to Milwaukee, which is, I mean, even if they sit everyone in Milwaukee, like that's a victory. Um,
no Giannis. He's
so
out with the suspension for the headbutt.
that's true. Yeah. Which was perfect timing for him. Stupid. And we can talk about that later. But So if I'm Brooklyn, I'm looking at this Portland team coming in and thinking like they're going to give it everything they have. So we can either give them a game and risk like injuring players, or you know what I mean. And like you're saying, like Joe Harris, like they, like he needs to make sure he's in rhythm for the playoffs. But like the Nets aren't going anywhere in the playoffs. They don't want to, like, no one wants to admit that or anything. But like
Yeah.
they're going to lose to the Raptors in the first round.
Yeah.
So it, what would be the point? I mean, maybe this is just optimistic, me speaking as a Blazers fan. Like, what would be the point of playing everyone?
Again, it would just be if you want to go in rhythm,
Yeah,
because you
right.
don't have a veteran squad. Like a team like the Lakers, I think they count, or the Clippers even, they count on you can just kind of sit or play people however you want willy nilly
Yeah,
because they're veterans and they know how to show up in big games.
yeah,
The Nets have a bunch of young guys, so who knows if they can do that. I think they probably sit. There's also the possibility that they start everybody and don't finish with everybody. Like, in other words, that they
yeah,
start people, give them a quarter, like play it like a
yeah.
preseason
15
game,
minutes or something. Yeah,
right?
right.
So they get some flow, they get some run, get a sweat, and then play their bench guys. Uh,
Yeah,
I don't know. Either way, Portland needs to be careful because
yeah,
Portland ended up playing a Philadelphia team without their best stars and almost lost. Portland did lose
yeah.
to the Clippers without Kawhi or Paul George played until like the last 2 or 3
Yeah.
minutes, which I want to
Pat
talk about.
Beverly didn't play either.
What's that?
And Beverly didn't play either.
And no Beverly and no
Yeah,
Montrezl Harrell, and
yeah,
they lost to that. They lost to that team. So the Blazers are capable of losing to um, really undermanned teams because when you don't play defense, you end up playing to the level of your competition.
yeah.
And of course, CJ is hurt. Before we go on, though, before I forget, this is my basketball conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So the Clippers played, they sat Kawhi for rest, which they've been doing off and on. But Paul George played up until the last like 2.5 or 3 minutes of that game. And
At least, yeah,
that was a close game. Like that was a game that could go
yeah.
either way, all the way down the stretch. So is it possible that they sat Paul George to give the Blazers a win, to give them a better shot at getting in to play the Lakers because the Clippers think that the Blazers, even if they're not going to beat the Lakers, will give them the hardest series and wear them down, knowing that
Yeah.
if you're the Clippers, the Lakers are your biggest rival? Or is that just crazy talk?
I don't know. I mean, I think that makes sense. I think like I wouldn't be surprised if it was that or wasn't that. You know what I mean? Like it would make sense for them to just be like, Paul George like wanted to rest or something. But it was weird
Yeah,
that he didn't
it's
play.
weird. Yeah,
Um, it was very similar in the game with the Nuggets. I don't know if you caught this, but when they played the Nuggets, Jokic just like didn't play
yeah,
in almost the entire second half.
right.
And he'd been like he's their own at that point. They didn't have Gary Harris or Jamal Murray or Will Barton, so he was their only guard. Anybody who could run the offense, and they just took him out, and the Blazers ended up winning. Um, so
But
I don't know. I
sat
wouldn't
for
be
most of the
surprised.
second half, right? I mean, he sat for a really
Yeah,
long stretch. I think they had just decided, like we are talking about with the Nets, like he had gotten his run. Where this game
yeah,
doesn't mean anything to us in the standings, so let's just let it go. Plus,
yeah.
there might be even something in the back of their minds that, like we don't even want to, like we don't want to give the Blazers any thought that their win here means anything to us.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I don't get that Paul George
Yeah,
benching,
yeah,
uh, but I thought it made for a fun conspiracy theory.
yeah. And it did make for a very fun. And I know, like, whoever's watching this, if you've paid attention to sports at all, and if you live in Portland, then you will have undoubtedly heard about the Paul George, Patrick Beverly, Damian Lillard beef that transpired after the Clippers game. And Paul George sitting um, didn't really matter that much to the beef, but he was able to clown Damian Lillard with Patrick Beverly from the bench, which fine, okay. Like my thinking is like you want to like one of the like I saw on Instagram like after that after he got the game winner hit on him by Devin Booker, that Paul George is like, I don't know how official the stat is, but like leads the league maybe all time in game winners hit on him. And
Are
he's
you
like,
serious or are you making a joke?
no, like like he's like 8 times. And
Oh,
like I saw all of the clips, like
it's
eight
kind of
times he's
funny
had a game
because
winner
he's a
hit on
good
him or something
defender.
like that. Right. He's a good defender. And so like but at the same time, he's a good defender. So he's the one who has to guard those people in the last minute
Right.
possessions. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, but like how childish is it? And speaking as a huge Dame fan, like how childish is it that you get bombed at from 37 feet last year? Your franchise is over. So you team up with the reigning finals MVP in LA just for a chance. Like just for a chance. Like
Right.
Damian Lillard didn't do anything other than his job
Right.
and blew up the Thunder. And so now he's saying, "Oh, haha, you're getting sent home this year." Like he wouldn't have said that if he was still with the Thunder, right? Like he's like you can only say that if you're Paul George if you're not worried about where you're going in the playoffs. And
That's
that's
right.
so stupid.
And it's dumb.
Um,
Like you don't get to throw that shade if you haven't done anything yourself yet, right? Like he hasn't even the
right,
score with Lillard. I mean, he hasn't done anything
right.
to Portland or to Lillard since the wave. It's not like he torched them in that
Yeah,
game even, or really
right.
shut Lillard down or anything like that. Lillard, for the first time in history, missed some clutch free throws. Okay, it happens. He's human. But like you said, he wrecked your whole franchise and waved you off the floor last year. Like, I don't think
Yeah,
missing a couple free throws at the end of a regular season game really balances that. So you can
no,
shut
yeah,
George.
yeah.
Um,
And Paul George, Patrick Beverly, I mean, like Dame's response at the end of the game was was legit, right? He said, like I appreciate not appreciate, but he was like, what they, the talk that they're giving me, like I take that as a sign of respect because that means they're used to me doing that at a high level. And Patrick Beverly and Paul George especially are used to him doing that after he waved off the Thunder and hit a game winner on Chandler Parsons and Patrick Beverly because they couldn't figure out the play.
well,
So
Beverly's
like,
already come out saying he's the hardest guy in the league for him to guard.
right, yeah.
I
So
also
like, yeah,
I also heard that, uh, and again, I don't know how official this is, but although now that I say that, I think it was Woj who reported it. So if that's the case, it's very official.
yeah,
But I heard that Paul George actually reached out to Dame to sort of make nice.
yeah. Because Paul George's wife and Damian Lillard's sister were going at it on Twitter.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear.
So yeah, so Paul George and Patrick Beverly both commented on Bleacher Report's um, post on Instagram about Dame missing the free throws, and then like I think it was Paul George's sister or Paul George's wife like shared the post and or no, Damian Lillard's sister I think shared the post and was like, somebody come get their guy, like get this clown off Bleacher Report. And then Paul George's wife like profanely responded to Damian Lillard's sister. And at this point, it's like, goodness, like what is the deal?
Yeah,
Um,
right.
like back off. Like it's a regular season game. And so yeah, so all of this hate, I mean, and you and I talked about this the other day. Like I kind of appreciate all the hate because like Dame Lillard said, like it shows that people are expecting him to do it at a high level. But
Yeah,
like people like Paul George, Patrick Beverly, who want to hate on him for missing 2 free throws. Skip Bayless came out and said he missed 2 free throws. Like he was like, I've been saying forever, like Damian Lillard's not that good. And then he goes and misses 2 free throws. And like that summed it up for me. Like, have you not been watching him for the rest of his career? Like, how much of an idiot are you? I don't need that answered because I know Skip Bayless is an idiot.
super clown.
But everybody hating on Lillard is for all of this for this stupid thing is kind of like obviously it's not the same, but it's kind of the same level or like the same kind of stuff that LeBron gets hate for or Jordan gets hate for or the all-time greats. They do something stupid and they get hated for that even though the rest of their resume is flawless.
because when you're really, really, really good, people are looking for any chink in the armor to go after you.
Right. Yeah.
And,
And
you
so
know,
I appreciate that.
yeah, I just think it's dumb, and I can't wait for Dame to get another shot at those clowns. And
Yeah.
because right now, the way he's playing, it's just, I mean,
You
like
don't want to get in
Porzingis,
front of
I
him.
know is not a stellar perimeter defender, but he looked so bad trying to guard Dame on every pick and
Yeah.
roll in that Dallas game. And Dame has reached that point where no matter who you put on him, if it's only one guy, he's going by you if he wants. I mean, it's just there's
Yep.
nobody in the league right now that can guard him. And there's a few guys in the league like that. Dame, Harden is playing at that level. LeBron has been at that level
Yep.
forever. Um, and
Yep.
right now, with the guys who aren't injured, that might be the list on offense. And
Yeah.
that's
I mean, Giannis.
cool.
Um,
Giannis, yeah, that's
but
true.
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
conveniently forgot the league MVP, but
Right. But yeah. So I mean, Dame's play kind of speaks for himself, and it's fun being, from Portland, and he dropped 61, ties his career high
mm,
against the Mavericks in a must-win game in a very, very nice end in that like 10-foot bounce shot off the rim to make it 61.
yeah, that was a good.
Um, and everyone loves it. I mean,
Yeah,
everyone on social media is saying, like, screw you, Skip Bayless. Like, look at what he did.
right.
And I saw that Adidas lowered all of their retail prices for his signature shoe to $61.
I saw that.
And one of my friends like
That over, by the
reached
way,
out to me and was
I
like,
didn't get any. I should have. I should stop right now.
I don't think so.
But anyway,
Yeah, I don't know if it's still going on or not. But one of my friends reached out to me and said, hey, like, I'm getting a pair. $61 is a steal. Which one should I get? Um, but yeah, so like everybody's loving it, and I love that. I can't get enough of it either.
yeah.
I was watching Sports Center today, and every single person wanted to talk about Dame's 61 points or how well Dame's been playing.
I watched. I watched the game through the local broadcast, and I was recording the TNT. So I actually went back and just watched the TNT commentary like at halftime and after the game just to listen to the guys talk up Dame because
Yeah,
he was
right.
so good. Okay, so here's
Yeah,
a Blazer question for you. Well, it's Blazer-ish. So let's assume the Blazers take care of business and they beat Brooklyn, and that's the simplest scenario. They can actually get in with a loss, but they need help. And it's a complicated, like, bunch of teams have to do different things. So let's say they get in.
yeah.
Who do you think gets the ninth seed between
I
Memphis,
think Phoenix.
and San Antonio? So Memphis
I
has to
think
play.
Phoenix. I think Phoenix.
Memphis has to play the Bucks
Right. That's a
without
loss.
Giannis. Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
I mean, I don't know
Doesn't
how many
matter.
guys the Bucks would have to sit for the Grizzlies to
Yeah,
win. I
they
mean,
would have to start Coach Budenholzer in order for them to lose.
Pat
Um,
Connaughton would have to be their go-to guy. No disrespect, Pat
yeah,
Connaughton.
that's a loss in every way you look at it. I think Phoenix. I think they have to play Dallas for the eighth game. Dallas is not going anywhere. They can't move up. They can't move down.
Dallas
So,
said everybody.
yeah, they'll sit everybody. Phoenix will win. They'll be looked at as the best team of the bubble because they went 8-0 and they're Phoenix. And yeah, they had some good wins, but they also played a bunch of guys who were like, they're Phoenix. Why would we play everyone? Um, and Devin, no knock on Devin Booker. He's been ridiculous.
Yeah,
But I think they win the ninth seed. And what's funny is that, like, I don't remember who I was talking to about it, but this is kind of a Blazers, another Blazers thing. We're talking about Devin Booker and, like, are the Suns really that good? And you and I have talked about, Devin Booker being on a terrible team and putting up crazy numbers, and everybody, that I was watching the Suns Sixers game, hoping that the Suns would lose, and um, the
nope.
commentators were like, there's no, like, they're like, it makes perfect sense why Devin Booker was an all-star this season. I love that, his play has translated into him being recognized as one of the better guys. Like, you know, another Dame plug, but he was only an all-star because Damian Lillard was injured.
Yes.
And so there's that. But also, like, the Suns being as good as they are, I think is a little bit of a misconception. I think they're good. Devin Booker's good. Devin Booker to me has proven that he's more in these 8 games, regardless of who they've played. I think he's proven to me that he's more than just a good scorer on a really bad team. They've got
I think
they've
so.
got good pieces. They're just really young,
Yeah.
and DeAndre Ayton's going to be good, and Dario Saric has played well, and
Ricky
signing Cameron
Rubio has
Payne.
been huge for them.
Yeah, signing Cameron Payne before the bubble was good. Just kind of a backup point guard. Everyone else on their team sucks, though. Like, sucks. Like, they're playing Mikal Bridges, and he's having to put up crazy numbers. And like, I just don't really get. I just don't get the idea that they're that good. I was thinking about if you take CJ and you put him on. If you take CJ and you take away like, I don't know, you take away Jason Tatum and you put him on the Celtics. Like, that's Devin Booker. I mean, granted, the Celtics are a much better organization, so maybe
Well,
that's a
just make
that's a
it
bad
easier.
example. But
Just swap swap CJ and Booker. Like put
sure, yeah,
CJ on the Suns instead of Booker. I actually think that's the same. I
yeah,
think CJ is the same player Devin Booker is.
right,
It's just CJ doesn't have to. Booker doesn't have to play behind Dame.
yeah, right. Bradley Beal did the same thing on the Wizards.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
you
that's
put him
not
with John Wall. That's a pretty good team.
that's
You take
not
John
doing
Wall
a
away, and he
knock.
averages 30. Yeah,
Correct. It's just that he's not. He hasn't proven himself to be next level. He might be in the process of doing that. Maybe that's what he's shown in these last 8
yeah,
games. The Suns. I think Monty Williams is a good coach. I
yep,
think that took them a long time. DeAndre Ayton was suspended at the beginning of the season, so they didn't actually have that much season together to play with all their guys. And so maybe this is just a part of like them living up to their talent a little bit. They have had some easy games in the bubble, both not playing the best teams and playing teams who sat their stars. But even still, I give them credit
yeah,
for winning.
yeah.
Who
They
did
beat
San
the Mavericks at
Antonio?
full health. They beat the Clippers at full health. So
Yep. Who did San Antonio play?
the Jazz,
Oh,
yeah,
I, I don't know. I think the Spurs and the Suns might win.
yeah,
Bro, and that would mean the Suns are the ninth seed if the Blazers win. If they
right,
both win and the Blazers lose, it means the Blazers miss the playoffs. Um,
yeah,
so it would be interesting if and I think I texted you this last night. I think the best case scenario for the Blazers is actually that they win, of course, and that the Grizzlies somehow beat the Bucks, because then the
yeah.
Blazers
Of course,
Blazers would get 2 games to win
yeah,
one against the hobbled and playing now crappy Grizzlies.
yeah. Already playing crappy Grizzlies. I mean, yeah.
I just can't get
Okay,
myself
so
worried
speaking of
about
Devin Booker,
Phoenix.
no, I can't get myself worried about Phoenix either. They're not like, when I watch them play the Sixers, they beat the Sixers. They beat the same Sixers team that the Blazers barely beat, and Dame had to drop 51 to beat them. Um, but Josh Richardson didn't play against the Suns.
Yeah,
So, and all of a sudden, Josh Richardson became a Blazer killer. But
right.
either way, no, I can't get him. I can't get worried about the Suns. But speaking of the Suns, speaking of Devin Booker, speaking of Dame, I saw that the NBA is going to do an all bubble team and an all bubble MVP. So who's your all bubble team and who's your all bubble MVP?
Okay, I'll give you my bubble team and MVP, but then I think we should also talk about, like, we talked about this the other day too, the guys who
Yeah, the
like aren't
standouts.
stars but
Yeah,
like have made themselves really good in the bubble.
yeah,
Um, so so I think that the so bubble MVP, it's either Dame or Booker, right?
right.
I mean, it's one of those two guys. I think I give it to whoever gets the 8th seed. Right. So if one of
Yeah,
those, I'd like whoever gets into the playoffs between those two, I'll give it to them. I think that Dame's numbers now, thanks to the last two games, have to be better. I haven't looked at them side
they
by
are
side, but
37, 9, and 4 for
yeah,
Dame.
I mean that's nuts on
Yeah,
really good shooting too.
yeah,
Um, and
almost 50%.
yeah, so it's I think I think whoever gets to the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that like I think if the Blazers hadn't had to fight for the 8th seed, I'd have given it to Booker. Just because no one expected the Suns to go 8-0, assuming they go 8 or not assuming they go 8-0. No one expected them to go 7-0, or you know 2-6. That's what people expected them to go.
Yeah,
So if the Blazers hadn't had to fight for it and Damian Lillard didn't have to scorch the earth just to make the playoffs, then I would have given it to Booker. But the Blazers did have to fight for it, and they came up big. So I agree. Like if they make the 8th seed, they were 3.5 games out before the bubble,
yeah,
and the Grizzlies lost a lot, but the Blazers have lost twice. So they're going to finish 6-2, assuming they beat the Nets. And those two games were winnable, but also against the Celtics and the Clippers, two very talented teams. Um, so yeah, I mean, Dame's numbers are better, especially thanks to the last two games. But Dame has proven that when he wants to win, he does, except for against the Clippers. But I don't really. I mean, that's a tough team to beat anyway. But like in the other two deciding games, he just decided. And I think a lot of how he played against Philadelphia and against Dallas was a response to how he played against LA.
I do too.
Um,
Yeah, I
you thought
agree.
I couldn't do it. Let me prove you wrong. And then
Right.
he did. And that's huge. That's
And
MVP status.
they're in an even deeper hole. And as we know now,
Right.
CJ's hurt. And
Yeah.
so CJ hasn't looked himself. I've been pretty like when you and I have been chatting during the games, I've been pretty critical of him because he's always been a bad defender, but he seems to have gotten even worse.
Yeah.
And then he also didn't look quite right the last game on offense. And then I found out he's got a broken back. So I'll get off his back
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Since he's toughing it out. And I love CJ. I do wish he would work on his defense, but I love him anyway.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so all bubble team, you got to put those two guys on it,
Yeah.
right? So Damon
Right.
and Book both on the team.
Yeah.
Uh, I
And I
think,
don't put I don't put guys like LeBron on the bubble team. Obviously, like they're the best players in the bubble, and they've played really, really well in the bubble. But the bubble is to me is like a separate entity. You're looking at like it as a separate from the regular season. Like I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but that's how I look at it. That's why I put Booker, right? Like he's never going to be in the MVP race, but he's going to be in the bubble MVP race.
yeah,
Um,
right.
so
Yeah, exactly. I agree
yeah,
with but I think no matter how you look at the bubble, TJ Warren uh,
yeah,
is one of the forwards,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
it gets tougher after that because
Yeah,
the biggest stars have sat a bunch of games or sat some
yeah,
games. So I think it's harder to say
yeah.
where you go
I
for
put Luca up there, guard, forward, whatever. Definitely Luca. He's been averaging 30, 11, and 11 in the bubble.
that's
So
pretty good.
the
That's all
last the last player to average that was an MVP in the regular season. So
right.
yeah, I
Okay,
have to put Luca up there.
I'll give you Luca.
Yeah,
Harden's played okay when he's played, but he hasn't played all the games. Same with Giannis.
except for today, Harden had an insane game. Did you see
Although I
that?
didn't see any of this. I didn't see any games or scores today.
Harden today lost to the Pacers, I believe, um, and had 45 points, 17 rebounds, and 9 assists on 13 of 21.
Wow.
Yeah. but they lost. No Westbrook.
Yeah, tell me what happened with Westbrook.
You're Yeah, I don't know what happened with Westbrook. I don't know. Did he get hurt?
Uh, I I just saw a headline that said the Rockets aren't sure um, what they whether they're going to have Westbrook for the playoffs.
Hmm,
And so
weird.
I don't know what that means. I assume he
I
got put.
hope they do.
I haven't heard any other issues. What's that?
I hope they do because they're going to play the Thunder in the first round. They locked that up today. So we're going to get a Harden, Westbrook, Chris Paul first round.
Uh, if I'm betting and I don't for those kinds of things,
Yeah,
I bet on the Thunder. I think the
me too.
Thunder. You know, I'm I'm also, because we're a professional show here, I got to plug in my computer so it doesn't die.
That's fair. No, yeah, I bet on the Thunder too. I mean, I think Chris Paul deserves a spot in the bubble, maybe bubble second team. Just and and he has performed as one of the most valuable players to his team this season. And obviously, Billy Donovan's in the Coach of the Year finalists.
Yeah.
But the Thunder are good, and the Rockets are not.
Right.
The Rockets are obviously really good, but Westbrook and Harden, Westbrook and Harden dissuade people from thinking that they don't work because they both put up really good numbers when they play together, but they don't work very well.
You mean like
And
don't work
when
together, not like don't work hard.
Yeah, right,
Because
exactly. They don't work
both those guys play
together.
really hard, but they just don't work as a unit.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. But when your center is 6'5", you're not going to win. Like, and
The thing, like
I
I
was
think.
talking to somebody the other day. Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was talking to somebody the other day. Like, the Rockets are really good for a game. Harden can drop 45, 17, and 9. He lost today, but usually that means a win,
Who
especially
did
if
they
they're
lose
playing
to?
Westbrook too. Huh?
Who did
The
they lose to?
Pacers, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe yeah, I think it was the Pacers. Let me see.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, it was the Pacers by 4. Um, and
Without
TJ
West.
Warren didn't even play.
Oh,
Yeah. So, yeah, but my point is, they're really good for a game. They can outpace you, outshoot you for a game. Their defense is not bad. Covington and PJ Tucker are good defenders, and McLemore's a good defender. Eric Gordon's back now. But if you're playing a team that has a big guy in a series, that you don't win. You don't like if they're playing the Thunder, Steven Adams looks like Shaq in that series.
yeah. I think you're
Just
right.
because they don't have anybody to stop him.
And the thing
And
is,
you can adjust way easier in a series.
right. And I think that this is the point that you're making. So I'm probably just amplifying here, but when the Ducks football team a few years back with Chip Kelly, their whole thing was to play at crazy pace, right? So they played
Yeah,
everything super fast, not just running fast, but like they'd get right back to the line of scrimmage and run another play and run another play.
yeah,
And they would beat teams that were more talented than them because the Ducks play that way every week, and that team, whoever they're playing, only plays that way once a year. And
yeah,
so once a year, it's like you can't make the adjustments. It's weird. It throws you off your other stuff that you want to do. That's the Rockets, right? So the Rockets win
yeah,
because when you look at PJ Tucker playing the 5 and everyone else is a perimeter player and he's a perimeter player
right.
and everyone's shooting threes, that's hard to figure out. It's hard to guard. It's hard to figure, you end up doing like when the Blazers played them, you end up not knowing because where to go with your mismatches because you have them all over the floor. And so
Yeah,
when the Blazers played them, you could see them like, so do we force feed Zach Collins
yeah,
because he's got this huge mismatch, but we don't usually run the offense through Zach Collins. So do we want Zach Collins getting 15
yeah.
shots a game? The answer is obviously no.
No,
Um, and so it throws you off. But I think to your point, which is I agree with completely, in a series, you can adjust and figure that out. It's not
yeah,
gimmicky. after the first game, it's like, whoa, that's weird. There's no true center. Our big guys, have little guys on them, and they're having to run and chase the guys around the perimeter. And then you see the film, and then the guys know what to expect. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, here's what we do. And I
Yeah,
just think especially a team with a player like Chris Paul, who's so smart. Um, I think the Thunder beat the Rockets. I think the Thunder beat the Rockets even if the Rockets have Harden and Westbrook, which
yeah,
is
I do too.
crazy because I will not take credit for thinking the Thunder were going to be good this year at the beginning of the year.
No,
I didn't think they had a chance. In fact, I thought they would just tank and trade Chris Paul to a contender before the trade
yeah,
deadline, and probably Steven Adams too.
yeah,
Instead, they've just been great. We all underestimated Chris Paul
and Billy Donovan.
and Billy Donovan. That's true. And
Yeah,
they've been great together. Uh,
yeah.
so, did we get our bubble team?
We got four of the players, at least
Dame,
mine:
Booker,
Booker, Dame, Luca,
Luca,
TJ.
TJ.
For center, it's tough. I went with Jokic just because he's had to play without his team, and
Yeah.
they've still been playing okay. It's tough. I mean,
And
Embiid
Popovich
and
called
Jokic are
him
the
the
two
next
best.
new Larry Bird. So
Right? Yeah.
must have been good.
Embiid and Jokic are the two best centers in the league. But Embiid hasn't played very much or very well, and so I don't know. I mean, you could not do a center, and you could just do the five best players,
At which point
or
that's
you could pick a
probably honest,
center,
right?
or
Because he's still been dominant.
he's
And
still been dominant. Yeah, you could pick AD. I mean, it doesn't really. You can go either way. I mean, when I was texting you about it the other night, I think I went with Jokic.
yeah, I
Um,
think I would agree with that. Um,
yeah,
or at least
there's
I
probably somebody I'm missing, but yeah,
yeah, I think that's right. Um, I, I didn't. You and I talked about neither one of us wanted the NBA to come back, not because we don't love the
right,
NBA, obviously, by given this conversation, but
yeah,
just because it seemed weird. It seemed weird to start the season again in the bubble. It seems like it might actually hurt next season, and throw that
yeah,
timing off. Uh, Now that it's back, I am enjoying it. I think it's been fun actually because most of the games are actually teams you would want to watch since
right,
a bunch of
right,
the sort of fluff in the NBA got left home. I don't know
yeah,
how Washington tricked its way into the bubble, but they should have been left
yeah,
home. What a joke.
right.
Um,
Well,
and
especially because they got included when Bradley Beal was still playing to play, but then he said I'm not going, which
yeah,
is
that's true.
the softest move in recent memory.
Well, they weren't going anywhere, right? It's not like they were going to actually. I mean, they were 4.5 games out, so they would
Yeah,
have had to really make a run. And Beal knew that wasn't
but
going
at a team like Orlando, like you know what I mean?
to.
Like
Yeah,
at least the teams playing in the West were good and had a chance. Um, but like Orlando, terrible. Brooklyn, terrible. Um, I mean, everybody like criticized Dame for his comments on if we go down there without a chance to win, I'm not playing. And I did too. Like, I don't agree with that. I think
yeah,
if you are paid by your team to play, you play.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that it is fair to give teams a chance to make it, especially the like eighth, ninth seed kind of teams, 10th seed. Um, but still, like you can't, especially if you're a player like Beal or Dame, where like that's your franchise. You know what I mean? Um, like if the Lakers went, or if the Lakers were in the eighth seed or something, and Kuzma was like, I'm just not going to play. Okay, fine, but like they don't rely on you like they rely on Dame or Beal or Booker or whoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you got to play.
I actually think the NBA did a pretty good job. I mean, I don't know that I would have
Yeah,
brought Washington in at all because that has been kind of a farce. But
yeah,
otherwise, like I like that many teams got a chance.
yep,
It's made all the games in the Western Conference really meaningful, and so that's been great. So if it's Blazers Lakers, it'll be Clippers. Who's in the 7th seed in the West?
Mavericks.
Mavs. Mavs have a shot against the Clippers?
No,
I wouldn't say it that
no,
quickly.
no way.
I mean,
I would.
I think the Clippers are my favorite to come out of the West, assuming that Harrell
Yeah,
and Williams are. I'm assuming they're healthy.
yeah.
But the Mavericks are pretty dang good. They are not very good on
The
defense,
Mavericks are good.
but
They're
they
not,
are
and they're
really good
not
on
deep.
offense. They're what?
That's the thing about the Clippers that I didn't like. I always forget if your starting lineup is Patrick Beverly, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, fill in the blank, and Zubac, probably Marcus or whatever Morris twin is on that team.
Right.
Uh, if
Evermore.
that's your starting lineup, but your bench is Reggie Jackson, veteran, solid point guard, Lou Williams, still very good.
Professional score.
Right. Um, I don't know who your small Jamichael Green maybe, Patrick Patterson. They've also got Landry Shamet,
Yeah.
Joakim Noah,
Yeah.
like Montrezl Harrell, like the Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams combined for 30 points a game,
And
and that's your
their
bench.
chemistry together is nuts. Like they are so good
Ridiculous.
together. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. That's why I think they're, the Lakers don't look right to me. I don't know
No.
if it's a chemistry thing or if it's the pieces don't quite fit because they
Yeah.
don't have enough shooting around
Yeah.
LeBron and AD. I was talking to Kurt Stratton, shout out Kurt Stratton, and he was actually saying that he thinks they've struggled more on defense than offense. I haven't seen that really, but I just they just don't look right. Now,
Yeah.
they also have the best player on the planet on their team, so
Right.
he can turn it on for a series.
Yeah.
So I don't really have much doubt that they're going to be tough in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I do think that gives the Clippers, and because of what you were talking about, they're super deep. They're real. The other thing that you didn't point out, but that is true about all those players you did list, is that not only are they deep, but they're flexible. Like they can play any style. They
Yeah.
can go small, big.
Yep.
They can match what they want. They can force you to do what they want. They can play a defensive lineup. They can put shooters on the floor.
Yeah.
They should be
And
the Western Conference champions.
yeah. And Doc Rivers is an experienced coach.
Yep.
He can
Champion.
coach whatever kind of style he wants. Like the Clippers are scary. And they've kind of lulled people to a false sense of security because of load management throughout the regular
Right.
season and Paul George and Kawhi being injured or not clicking when they are playing together. But I mean, they signed Joakim Noah before the bubble, which is a good pickup. Um, and they're just loaded. They're just loaded. They don't have a super team really, but they're loaded
Here's
on
my
in terms of depth. Yeah.
here's my one criticism um, of the Clippers, or here are my criticisms of the Clippers. The things that why maybe the Lakers beat them instead, besides just that they have LeBron,
Yeah.
is they you can't put the Clippers' five best players on the floor at the same time. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you can't have
Right.
Lou Will, Harrell, George, and Kawhi and someone else on the floor at the same time because those guys
Yeah.
don't play well together. So that's a
Yeah.
problem. George and Kawhi has yet to show great chemistry. Now they're both such great
Right.
individual players. Not sure it matters a lot, but it's a little thing. And the other thing I'll say is they go through weird stretches where they have a hard time scoring. I don't know why
Sure.
exactly, but I just in watching them this season, they'll hit like a 5 minute lull in the middle of a quarter where you just think I'm not sure they're ever going to score again, which is
Yeah.
weird considering how good the offensive talent is on that team.
Yeah.
Um, so Thunder
But
and
Kawhi, yeah.
no, go ahead. I was going to
I
move
was
on.
just gonna say Kawhi kind of proved last season, and I mean he did it with the Spurs too. But like LeBron in a smaller sense, he can turn it on, and he can be that guy who just says, "Now I'm going to take over," and then he does. And
Yeah,
who knows if he's going to be able to do that against LeBron? But he can do that against the Mavericks. Like I'm not worried. Luke is young. Kristaps is young. Neither of them have playoff experience. They are not deep at all. Their third best player is Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, like Seth Curry's hurt right now.
he's going to
So
play though. I think.
yeah, and he would be big. I'm glad he didn't play against Portland yesterday. But
Oh, and you're leaving out Boban. Come on. How could
yeah,
you forget
Boban,
Boban?
man, he is hilarious to watch. Just too big for his own good. But yeah, I like the Mavericks against another inexperienced team, like the Jazz, or the Thunder or somebody like that. But against the Clippers, I don't like the odds at all. I think that's a 5, maybe 6 game series.
I agree the Clippers win. I think the Mavericks are going to be a tough out because with Luca and Porzingis on the floor, they can score and they can
Yeah,
score in ways that are really hard to stop. Luca has just already become a
really
force.
hard.
And if Porzingis isn't going to shoot like he did against Portland every game, but
Yeah,
that guy can really fill it up. So I think they would take a game, maybe two from the Clippers. I don't think it would be a sweep, but I agree.
yeah, I don't either.
So Clippers win,
Yeah,
Thunder win. How about the Nuggets and the Jazz? That's who they play, right?
yeah, the Nuggets win. Jamal Murray's back.
Is he?
If Jokic plays well, yeah, he's back and he's
Oh,
playing well. I don't know about Gary Harris or Will Barton. I don't know what their injuries are or their timelines that they might be out for the season. I don't know. Um,
I don't either.
but
Utah
the Nuggets are good,
right
and the
though.
Nuggets are Utah is not right. Yeah, something happened with Don. I mean, obviously, Corona happened with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and that soured their relationship. But they haven't been able to mend it, which leads me to believe that there's something else going on there. And then Mike Conley sucks inexplicably.
And
Um,
Bogdanovich got hurt.
so
Bogdanovich was a perfect
yeah,
fit. He was like their scorer. I know Joe Ingles, but he's not the same.
yep,
And Connolly was supposed to be the
right.
perfect fit. I thought it was going to be the perfect fit. A tough nose,
I thought
defensive
they were a contender this year.
scorer. Yeah. And they just, if
Yeah,
somehow, the only way they beat the Nuggets is if the Nuggets injuries are still but like you said, if Jamal Murray's back and they have Jokic, obviously, yeah, I think the Nuggets win. I think it might be a 5 game series. Like, I don't even think it's that hard
yeah,
the
I
way
agree.
the Jazz look
Yeah.
right now.
The fact that I'm worried about the Jazz losing to the Spurs tomorrow is telling. You know what I mean? Like, no team who should win a playoff series should be worried about losing to the Spurs.
Not this Spurs team. Um,
Yeah,
oh,
right.
how have they been? Yeah. Um, what about out east? So
Yeah,
the Bucks should sweep the first
they
round.
they sweep Orlando. The Raptors sweep Brooklyn, and then you're looking at Celtics play
I do think Brooklyn might
the
take one from
Sixers.
the Raptors. I'll just say that because I love this
Yeah,
guys.
right.
They play really hard all the time. They go after it, and the Raptors. Let's be honest. Even though they won with Kawhi, and they've been really good this year, I'm still not sure I totally trust Kyle Lowry. And so
No,
I think I could see them having one down game. The problem is with the bubble, we haven't really talked about, is there's no home games. I mean, I know they try to make home games by putting the
yeah,
different teams' logos on the floor, but there are no home and away games
yeah,
really. And so, the usually in a playoff series, like a scrappy team will get the energy of their home crowd for a couple games, and they'll take one at home. Maybe you don't
right.
get that. So maybe you do get more sweeps this year. But you're right. That's a relatively easy series for the Raptors. So
Yeah.
Sixers play who?
I wanna add in while we're talking about home court advantage. Rachel Nichols today was talking about um, she on SportsCenter. She was talking about the home teams have won like 57% of their games
In
or
the
something
bubble.
like that. Like they're over 500 in the bubble, and she was trying to convince, I don't know, Vince Carter and uh, whoever that whoever else was on the jump that there actually is a home court advantage. And she was saying like being in the games herself, like they pipe in the crowd noise and it feels like an actual game. Because when there wasn't crowd noise at the beginning of the scrimmage, you could hear everything, and it threw players off to a point where they had to include crowd noise.
Right.
Um, And so she's arguing, she's saying like, obviously it's not the exact same or close to the same, but it's, there is a small sense that there is a home, like that you are home, or that it is like a similar to that game style. But yeah, just, I don't agree, but
I don't. Yeah, I don't
thought
know.
that was
I
funny.
mean, Rachel Nichols is really smart. She knows a lot about basketball, and she's there, and we're not. So I'll give
Yeah.
her credit. But I'm
Right.
also thinking like, I don't think that's all there is to but home and away. Isn't the crowd and
Yeah.
stadium? It's also the travel, the not sleeping in
Yep.
your own bed, the not following your routine, and none of that is
Yep.
different for any of the teams. They all
Yeah.
have,
Right.
so they're all playing all road games.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's much of a factor. So I think that's going to, so I think that's great for the lower seeded teams. I think
Yeah.
it's the biggest advantage they're going to have. Um, okay, so who are the
So
Sixers?
the Celtics play the Sixers. That's the 3 and the 6 seed. Um,
Oh,
and the Celtics destroy them.
sorry, Sixers.
I,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that's that's
Yeah.
a rough opening round matchup. But no Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
They're
And
just
no, and Embiid will be hobbled. Um,
perpetually always.
always. He ran into a stanchion against Portland and sat the entire game with an ankle problem. He is the NBA's biggest baby.
I biggest baby. I might have to think about that, but you might be right. He's
Yeah.
certainly in the running. And the
Such
Celtics
a
are good.
whiner.
I think the
Celtics are
Celtics are
good.
good and getting better. Like I think
Yeah.
they had some stuff to work out with. I think everyone just figured like you could plug in Kemba Walker because he's a vet and he does kind of what Kyrie did, so they'll be fine. And I think people just looked at pieces and said they all fit, so they'll be great. But if you've played basketball, you know that you have to play with guys. You still have to learn tendencies. You have to figure
Yep.
out, when you're going to have to help, how the rotations are going to work, where a guy likes to get the ball, when, little things like, maybe Hayward shoots a higher percentage if he doesn't go too long without touching the ball in the offense. So you got to know when to run a play for a guy, like just all those kinds of things you have
Yeah.
to figure out to maximize
Yep.
players. And I feel
Yep.
like they're starting to do that.
Yeah. Which is a
Tatum's playing
testament to the great
really
coaching
high
of
level.
Brad Stevens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Jalen Brown is playing really well. Kemba, I
Yep.
think, is just a really good player. And now Hayward is starting to look like he fits. And
Yeah. Right.
that makes them a legitimate contender. I
Yeah.
still think Milwaukee is the hands down favorite to come out of the
Yep.
East, but I think Boston is a legitimate contender.
Yeah.
So that leaves Miami and whoever Miami
Indiana.
is. Yeah, Indiana. So
Which
Miami.
is awesome because then we get a full series of TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Currently the weirdest best feud in basketball.
Right.
Also, only second to that is Jimmy Butler and Jimmy Butler's mustache and his razor. That is the
Yeah.
other ongoing feud. What's happening with
Right.
quarantine mustache? Jimmy Butler's trotting out there. It's terrible.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler wants to go at anyone, which I love. And we finally get to see the Heat in the playoffs again. And Bam is good. And Tyler Harrow dropped like 35 today.
Duncan Robinson.
But Jimmy Butler wants to go at anyone, as evidenced by him absolutely steamrolling Chris Paul today. Did you see that?
Really? No, I didn't see that.
So Chris Paul got the ball. He was trapped in the corner, guarded by Duncan Robinson and some other Heat player, and he was getting trapped. And so he jumped out of bounds and then just threw it off Duncan Robinson's back,
Okay.
and just so it would go
Yeah.
out of bounds off
Right.
the Heat. And then a play you see all the time. It wasn't aggressive. It didn't seem aggressive in the highlight. It just seemed like Chris Paul making a decision rather than call timeout. And Jimmy Butler could not stand that. So on a couple plays later, he's driving to the bucket, lowers his shoulder right into the chest of Chris Paul, just sends him flying out of bounds. And then when they called the foul, Jimmy Butler just dropped the ball and walked away yep, I knew I did that on purpose.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
You should
wow.
look it up.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
you'll be
I'll
able to
watch
find
more
it. But
clips if I
it
remember
just
that.
Jimmy Butler, man, calm down. I
Right.
love his feud with TJ Warren, blowing kisses and everything. That's awesome.
It's
And the
awesome.
last time they played a couple days ago, Jimmy Butler locked him down and put up huge numbers.
It's awesome
So,
because Jimmy Butler is in a different class than TJ Warren, but TJ Warren's been playing out of his mind. Um, the thing is, if you look at the like, especially advanced stats, Jimmy Butler owns TJ Warren.
of
Um,
course, yeah, right. It's such a dumb thing, but I love it.
it's funny though.
Um,
It's funny.
yeah,
Uh, I Yeah, I think the Eastern Conference is actually really interesting at the top. So I think the Heat, Bucks, Celtics. Oh, who am I missing? There's one other team that's good, right?
Raptors,
Raptors. Yeah, thanks. Raptors.
Raptors. Yeah,
Heat, Celtics, Raptors, Bucks. Um, Honestly, any of those teams could beat the other in a 7 game series. I think the Bucks are better than all the rest of those teams, but I think any of those
yeah.
win.
I don't think the Heat beat the Bucks, but I think any of the other teams could beat the Bucks, and I think the Heat could
Yeah,
beat either the Celtics or the Raptors.
you're probably right about that.
Yeah,
You're probably
yeah,
right.
but
All
yeah.
right. Well, I don't know exactly when our video is going to click off, but we do have a time limit. Um,
Okay,
and
yeah. Well, that's pretty much all I had to talk about tonight.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. We didn't talk about football because there's nothing to really talk about.
Yeah,
And until, especially and through the weekend, I'm going to be still obsessed with the Blazers and the NBA.
right,
Uh,
right.
Games on tomorrow afternoon. Winning, you're in. Let's hope just to make sure. Let's hope that Brooklyn decides to sit their guys. Although it's kind
Yep,
of funny that we're talking about them sitting their guys, and their guys are
right.
Chris LeVert and Joe Harris.
Because I can't even name all their starters.
No, no, and neither could I. Yeah, no. Um,
Yeah, I
but
could get close, but yeah,
and let's hope that, like, I don't know how you play basketball with a broken back. Somehow CJ is doing it, but let's
yeah,
hope he's really able to do it. Like, I mean, because
yeah,
the Blazers need him to play at a
for
really
LA.
high level. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like the way the season's been so bad for the Blazers that honestly, salvaging it by getting into the first round. I know I'll feel differently every time they play, but
right.
that's a win. Like I'm good with that.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
want
It's
them to
kind of
get
like last
swept by the
season.
Lakers, and I hate the Lakers, so I don't want the Lakers to win ever against anyone.
Yeah,
Um, but that's a good rebound to the season.
yeah, and it's kind of like last season in the sense that like you want to get out of the first round. It's different this year because you don't expect to get out of the first round. But last year, you want to get out of the first round, and then okay, you're playing the Nuggets, so it'd be nice to win, but you don't expect to because they're dominant. Then you beat them. Then you go to the Western Conference Finals, and at that point, you're like, okay, well, it's the Warriors. What do you expect? And then obviously they had a chance, but everything. But like them just getting to the Western Conference Finals was a win for me.
It was, yeah.
And now because of this season, they've sucked all season. Just getting to the playoffs and giving the Lakers a competition is a win for me.
Yeah. I will say this: if the Blazers beat the Lakers in the first round, then the Blazers have as good a chance as anyone to go to the finals. Uh,
Yes, I
which is
still don't
a
want to play
crazy
the
thing to
Clippers,
say.
but yes,
I would not want to play the Clippers either because I think the Clippers are
no,
the favorite. But if the
yeah,
Blazers can get by the Lakers, they've got a real chance.
yeah,
I'd still love to have a time machine with a healthy Damian Lillard against the Warriors last year. I think the Blazers, they were up double digits in every game.
yeah,
But Dame clearly just wasn't himself.
yeah,
And
right. And
um,
Skip Bayless loves to talk about that.
yeah, Skip Bayless, man, how does he still have a job? I mean, his
That's
job is
dumb.
just saying, like, writing headlines like LeBron James is the fifth best player in the NBA,
Right.
right? Or uh, you know, George Kittle shouldn't be on an NFL roster, or I
Yeah.
mean, just like says just dumb stuff, so people like, oh, that's crazy, that's dumb. Yeah, I know. He's trolling the whole world.
Clickbait.
I
Yeah.
hate I hate Skip Bayless.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
good first episode. We'll be back to talk more sports. And until then, we'll see you later.
All right.